See that button, Ted? It says you're live.
I do.
Yes, yes. Well, Ted, welcome to our show. I'm so happy and honored to have you here today with us, sharing your story. And I just got to tell you, you're a record for me because I usually interview women, and it's usually very breast cancer and breast cancer survivor heavy. So you're my first male. So
Wow.
I'm kind of excited for that. I've interviewed men, but they're talking about insurance,
Okay.
which is important. But
Yes, it is.
definitely, from a patient perspective, you're my first interview. So I'm really looking forward to talking about this important topic. So
Well, thank you.
Ted, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are,
Okay.
outside of cancer, just who you are.
Okay. Ted Healy. I'm a 66-year-old guy that's married to an amazing artist wife, and I have 2 rescue dogs and a persnickety cat. I live here in Portland, Oregon, and I live. I'm very fortunate to live the kind of life that I lived here in Portland, and I'm grateful to be here. And a cancer survivor.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Why are you grateful to live the life that you live? People would say, why would you be grateful to live the
Well,
life that you live?
I guess we'll get right into it. Believe it or not, when I got the cancer diagnosis, first, yes, of course, I'm like, oh, I've got the big C. Oh, goodness. But, it really was a gift. And people are like, gift? What are you talking about? Well, it really makes me grateful to have music is just sounds better. Birds sound louder. Every day is a gift to me. Particularly, I am stage 4 metastatic. It's currently, they don't use remission anymore. They use NED, no evidence of disease. It's there. It could come back tomorrow or it could come back in 30 years. So to me, every day is a gift. And I value my friends more. Of course, I always value my wife, but just these times the time we're having right now, it's a gift that I can be here sharing my experience with you, Sharon, and your audience. So, I view my cancer as it's a gift in a weird way.
It's not weird, Ted, and only a cancer survivor would fully understand what you're saying. I had a woman on yesterday. She was a 2-time survivor, and she said, cancer made me better. Just made me a better person. And I have another friend who wrote a book called Thank You, Cancer. So only a survivor would understand. And I think what it is that wake up call, or that awareness that, oh, I'm actually mortal, and that just like this, my life could be taken away. So again, while I have it, I'm going to live it as best as I can to the fullest, love more, love harder, play harder, enjoy life harder, and stress a lot less. So I can totally understand and appreciate what you're saying.
Yes. As a good friend says, I try to suck the bone marrow out of every day.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. And I will just say this to the audience. You don't have to be a survivor to live this way. Sometimes it takes, a situation for us to come to this moment. But you, the audience, who are not, a cancer patient, do not have to wait until that happens. So Ted, when we talked, you said you wanted to talk about the 3 stages for you, diagnosis, treatment, and after treatment. So tell us about your diagnosis. When was that? How many years ago? How did you find out what happened?
Okay. It was in February 2018. I actually found out on my chart on my own. I saw that my biopsy showed that I had what was called, the way they score it is a Gleason 4+3, which is a 7, which is considered aggressive. And I'm like, oh goodness, I have the big C. And then later on, my urologist brought me into the office and told me officially that I have 4+3, 7. And then we went over my options that were available to me. And, I also, within the diagnosis area, I'm not the most wealthiest guy in the world, and I have okay insurance. But another thought was, oh my God, it's going to bankrupt me. What the heck? Holy cow, my poor wife, what are we going to do? So I also was reaching out, figuring out ways to handle I call it financial toxicity of cancer.
Yes.
And through organizations like Zero, through Providence, I was able to apply for financial aid. which was a godsend. Oh my God. You know, my treatment cost somewhere, it's now 250,000 plus. It's still continuing, but you know, that's a huge nut. And I know guys and women that are way more than that. But for me, I mean, I'm a Star Trek guy, and you know, we'd hit our shields. We'd probably go down to maybe a 4 shield, but you know, it's still a huge hit. I mean, and then I think about the support that I had. You know, I've learned to reach out and ask for help. And I don't mean a hand out, I mean a hand up.
Right.
I looked around I'm very fortunate. I think I shared with you earlier, Sharon, we have 3 great prostate support groups here in Portland.
Yes.
Prostate cancer support groups of men. And I started reaching out to them, and they were an invaluable source of knowledge of guys that are ahead of me and guys that were probably just even more newly diagnosed than I was. And so I reached out to them, got some invaluable information. As a matter of fact, one of the facilitators was the one that started me on the financial aid, going through financial aid. I didn't even think that was a possibility. But he told me that nonprofit hospitals, in order to maintain their status, have to give out a certain portion of financial aid. So thank God for him. So that was the diagnosis area. And then the treatment. Okay.
Before you go to treatment, Ted, I think
yeah.
it's just so important what you just shared, because, you know, of course, this is, again, this show aims to inform, you know, people who may be going through, educate them on what's out there. It's based on people's real life experience, your lived experience. And you were talking about the financial aid, and you're saying that this you know, support group, someone there told you that, hey, these nonprofit hospitals have to give out a certain amount. So you were able to get in on that vein and get your treatment covered. And that's so important. And it's so important that you were aware, right? You knew how to go get help. You knew how to ask for help. And you know, one of the things that we deal with here at Total Health is, you know, one of the areas that we're really zeroing in on, so to speak, is the health disparities, right? Because if you're not educated, you know, like you know, I see in your bio, you're a Madison Avenue, you know, executive, you know, you had your coffee shop, retired, but you know, you're an educated man, right? And you're a Caucasian male. And so imagine this with uneducated country person, you know, different race. It's awful, that, you know, and the prognosis is terrible. So, but what we're trying to really champion is equity, right? Like, you know, like the information that you just shared. It's true. Nonprofit hospitals have to give out a certain amount of charitable, you know, services, but who knows that? And especially when you're dealing with cancer already, who has time? So I really appreciate you sharing that. So that was your diagnosis. Yes. And then came the treatment.
Yes. Well, there's all kinds of treatments out there for prostate cancer. You know, there's surgery, there's radiation, there's chemo, every single one of them, you know, many options available. And, you know, they all sadly have side effects that aren't great. They just, all of them do. So I went with the surgery option. I did have surgery. Sadly, the surgery failed in the sense of my PSA did not go down after the surgery. It's called persistent. It didn't go. So then I had to go the route. I didn't have to go the route, but based on reaching out. Oh, and another thing, second opinions, please consider second. I got a second opinion on my biopsy. I had a second opinion on, you know, the surgery. I mean, I really wanted to make sure if I'm going to go down this route, and, you know, at the end, I'll talk about physically, I'll never be the same from this process, but I wanted to make sure I made the best decisions possible. So I went through something called ADT, because prostate cancer lives off of testosterone. That's what it lives off of. And so you get this drug that you take that brings your testosterone down to 0. Basically, you're going through menopause. You know,
right,
like sweat. Right. I mean, it's an evil drug, but it worked. Then I went through radiation. I had 36 zappings, I call it, of radiation.
Yeah. Yes.
So it worked so far, you know.
Oh,
but
wow.
Because of that, I guess, you know, your audience, I have ED. I'll have ED for the rest of my life. It'll never, ever come back. You know, I have also gained a tremendous amount of weight. I've been athletic all my life, thanks to clinical trials. And that's another thing, part of the reaching out process. There's a clinical trial that was offered by OHSU for men that have been through the testosterone reducing therapy that I've been through, to try to combat physically through yoga, through strength training, through Tai Chi, ways to reclaim your body back from this drug. And so I entered into a 6-month trial where I got yoga for free. Actually, I was paid a stipend. I take that back. It was beyond free. I actually got paid a stipend. And they take a benchmark of where you're at physically in terms of your muscle mass, in terms of your bone density, in terms of, and this is all free. And they track you through the progress after 6 months. They see how you've done. And I lost a lot of weight. My cholesterol, I was almost diabetic. The Lupron also makes you, I was pre-diabetic. Cholesterol was through the roof. I weighed 250 pounds. I've lost 50 pounds. I mean, it really puts your body through a lot. And again, it's because part of reaching out, and another thing I did was genetic testing.
Before you go, because Ted, you are a fountain of information and resources. it's really. So you did a clinical trial for 6 months, you said.
Yes.
And you were able, and this clinical trial was to counteract the effects of that drug that helps minimize the side effects.
Yes, the goal of the trial is to gather evidence-based data to go to the drug manufacturers and say, look, folks, you need to factor in physical exercise for men that go through this because it just destroys them physically. And that's the goal. It's the study's over. They're putting together the final results, and they're going to go to the manufacturers. So that was the goal of the study.
So when you did it, you lost 50 pounds. You did a lot of yoga. So what are they trying to tell the drug manufacturer? Like, okay, when you give this drug, tell the patients that they have to do this as well, parallel?
It should be part of the package. Like, there's a hospital here. If you're a cardiac patient, you're automatically enrolled into an exercise program. It's just part of the standard of care. And
gotcha.
They're trying to get the drug manufacturers to make just part of the standard of care. If you're going to put men on this stuff, they need to have some sort of way to combat the side effects that this drug gives you.
So other than the weight loss, which was good, you're able to peel back that 50 pounds. Did you feel any other benefit of the clinical trial? I mean,
absolutely. You building back muscle. Your muscle wastes away because you need testosterone to build muscle. There was definitely chemo brain. I mean, I'm a part. I still wonder. I go into the kitchen and go, why am I here? But it was even more so than that. So it helps you combat that. Balance, falling, when you get older, falling is a huge issue.
Yes.
I mean, that's you break a hip, and it's not like it used to be where it was like a death sentence, but it's still not great.
Right.
So you get your mobility back, you get your strength back, you just feel better. It's also you're there with survivors, fellow men going through the same thing.
That's wonderful. How are you continuing the yoga and are you continuing your yoga and you are okay?
Yes,
good.
Yes. Okay.
So as we're still talking about treatment, because we talk about diagnosis, we're talking about treatment, and this wonderful about the clinical trial. We at Total Health, we ourselves are launching our own clinical trial for women in December as well. So we value that. We value, clinical trial. As you talk about treatment, you and I were talking before we got on live that did you change your diet? Were you told to do that as well? And you said yes, they did mention that.
Yes, part of being on the support groups is they bring in guest speakers and doctors and experts, and they bring on nutritionists, and the nutritionists talk about the value of a much more vegetable-based diet, leafy vegetables, Brussels sprouts, kale, kale, and trying to stay away from alcohol as much as possible, trying to stay away from sugar as much as possible. I mean, believe me, I'm no saint. I'll go out and I'll have an omelet with sausage and hash browns every now and then because I don't want to make it to the point where I just don't want to do it. But right. I have definitely changed my diet, and that's also the result. I mean, exercise can only help you so much in terms of getting the fat off. It's really 70% of your diet, I've been told. That's what I've been told. 70% of what you do is from your diet, and the rest is exercise. I have dogs, which help tremendously.
You have to walk them. Yeah.
Oh, yes. So that's built in.
Ted, there's some people in the feed. I'm just going to, some of my colleagues are here. I'm just going to put their stuff on the screen real quick.
Sure.
Elena said, Ted, never heard about the financial aid from a hospital. This could have benefited so many people I know. A cancer diagnosis was so financially devastating. That's why I was saying, Ted, that's why I slowed you down right there, because that's just, whoa. And it reminded me of something, Ted. When you said that, it was a little bit of a deja vu for me, because when my mom had a stroke, and I had to put her in a one of those assisted living places.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was very hard for me as a Jamaican. You know, our parents have to live with us until they pass away. That's just the way how the culture is. But she needed 24-hour care, and the best, the A-rated place in the county was not affordable. It was $10,000 a month. But then I was told, I had the knowledge based on some work I did in the community, that Medicaid or Medicare or whatever it was, a certain amount of beds at these expensive facilities for people who are, you know, who are not as rich. So when they told me that they were full and they were on a 3-year waiting list, I called back and I said, but my mom is going to be on Medicaid. Isn't there a bed allotted for her? Within 24 hours, she was in a bed in a $17,000 a month room. So It's just, if you don't know, you don't know. But that, just knowing that, put her from a 3-year waiting list to 1 day. She was in. So that was. So I'm glad you shared it, and this is what Elena signed. Let me just repeat. It's great that you immediately sought financial assistance. It's one of my greatest fears, other than dying from cancer, making my family broke in the process.
Could I just step in for a second here on the financial aid? So I did make a mistake, and that is I was told that my anesthesia bill, they did not do financial aid. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, my wife had, you know, some surgery done, and it turns out that if you've been approved by your hospital institution, that this company would automatically approve you for financial aid, but you have to apply right away. I tried to apply, and like, sorry, you missed the time limit. So, you know, I pay $10 a month because I'm on an interest-free thing, and it's not credit reporting agency. You know, so okay, here's $10 a month. But you know, as long as I stay current, I'm okay. But try to act as fast as you can, because there are. I found out the hard way that there are time limits. So
there are time limits.
Yes, on some. Yes.
Sarah, who is the founder of Total Health and my partner on this show, she says, great to have you with us. One of the best things is to hear patients using their experience to empower others. Just encouraging second opinions could be transformational for people diagnosed.
And advocate for yourself, just like you did with your grandmother in the assisted care. Advocate for yourself. You know, there's a thin line between them wanting to just go away and die and just advocating for yourself. You know, it's finding that line where you need, you know, I mean, for me, just another example, you know, when I got my referral for the radiation, the radiation people never got the referral. And I finally had to call like almost maybe 3 weeks later. Oh, we didn't get one. Well, if I hadn't called, who knows how long I would have waited, you know? So sadly, the system is stretched to the limit, and, you know, you need to but I found there's a line between being too persistent and they just want you to go away to just, hey, listen, hey guys, I'm here. So.
Yes, I totally agree about the advocating for yourself, self-advocacy. And I would also say for patients, if you have someone in your corner, like one of your family members who can advocate, like my mom couldn't do it. I did it for her. And the difference in how she was treated at that facility compared to other people whose parents or whose kids didn't show up, or it was literally night and day. And she got A-class treatment, and I watched other people getting F-class treatment. And that's just because I was such an advocate. So I totally agree with you on that. ED is such an important side effects of this that so many men fear. Have you investigated any available treatments and their risks and benefits?
I have. I investigated there's a thing called Trimix, where they actually you put a mix into the TMI here, but it is actually shoot into the penis. They use a diabetic needle. I don't know if I can do that. And also, I've been looking into having an implant done. Oh, dear God. It's such a invasive. It's almost even more invasive than a prostatectomy, surgery, and the recovery is very difficult. It's a difficult, very, thank God my wife has been a rock. I mean, an absolute rock through all this. And but, yes, I mentioned I'm an educated man, but I still have that reptilian brain. Like, am I really still a man? So, yeah. It's an issue. it's an absolute issue. Some days are better than others.
Pete, Ted, we talked about this before we came on, on live. We talked about the aspect of when the day hits you, right? Which the day is a thought, like what you just said. Am I still a man? And for those women who have lost both of their breasts and have opted not to do, reconstruction surgery, am I still a woman? How do you process that as a man? Because I think it's almost what Peter said. He said he fears a diagnosis like that, right? Or any kind of cancer diagnosis. And I think it could be that a lot of men won't test because they don't want to know, right? Because of all these side effects that could happen. So how do you process that? Am I still a man? And like you said, thank God for amazing partners, right? Amazing wife, supportive, same thing with the woman, with her husbands who are amazing. But how do you personally, when you're quiet and you're alone, how do you refresh, renew, reinvigorate the mind? How do you do that?
I'm a big believer in move a muscle, change a thought. So rather than stewing in myself, and I thank God I have dogs. Thank God I live here in Portland. I live in an area where you literally can walk 5 minutes away and you're in the forest, and you can do forest bathing. You can see the trees. I also reach out to my friends. I sometimes will pick up the 5,000-pound phone, and I'll talk to them. These are people that they've been through difficult times with me, and I've been through difficult times with them. So I'm really fortunate to have and to reach out and ask for help. What I mean? And don't get me wrong. I mean, there are days I just like, damn it, why me? This really just is awful. And particularly, when we have a PSA test, I have one coming up this month where it's going to find out if the monster is back or not. That's always like the sword hanging over my head. I'll have that for the rest of my life. It's another thing that, I will never be the same physically. And that's another thing, I'll have that for the rest of my life. So move a muscle, change a thought, get out, walk the dogs, get into nature, talk to friends, listen to music. Music is a great, oh God, I love music. Thank God for music, but it's tough, it's tough. And also, try to eat, if I want to eat a burger, then I'll go eat a burger.
Yeah. Yes. I hear you with that. My oncologist had said to me, when I first got diagnosed and I had to go to Florida for a vacation, I didn't want to go. She said, no, go and eat cake and have fun, because you'd be better off doing that than staying home being stressed. So absolutely. I agree with you. Of course, we know that we have to be moderate with all these things.
Yeah,
but
within reason. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree and understand what you're saying. And we have another comment here. Jennifer says, yes, having to deal with cancer is tough enough without added financial challenges. Having the assistance can be life-changing. And Jennifer says, advocate. And Jennifer Johnson, yes. So we talked about diagnosis, treatment, and now we're talking a little bit too about after treatment.
So this is also another area where I think, when I get into that really bad state of mind, yes. I'm putting myself out there. A lot of men, sadly, as we mentioned before, they won't get tested. They don't want to know about it. They just go under a rock, because that's where a lot of men are socialized. We're socialized not to show us, don't let us see us sweat. So I've thrown myself as a passion and using my skills I got in advertising to get the word out about. I don't want men to go through what I've been through. I really don't. I've volunteered. The government has a program through the Department of Defense called IMRT. I also written grants. I had no idea that advertising was a great training ground for grant writing. So I sit there with another consumer advocate, and we review these amazing grants written by massive major researchers and doctors that the DoD funds. $110 million they funded last year for prostate cancer, and it started with breast cancer. It started with breast cancer back in 1996, and it's funded by the Department of Defense. It's an off-budget item, and they've included substance abuse. They've included all different types of cancer, including prostate cancer. So I do it that way. I'm very involved. I was very involved with our run walk here. We raised $65,000 for prostate cancer. I go to the support groups. I talk to men. They know I'm also a mentor for Zero. So if someone is newly diagnosed and they're reaching out asking for help, I'll get a call. if I, meet the criteria of a stage 4 metastatic, they try to match you with the kind of disease you're at.
Yes.
So I talk to men going through it and just share my experience, strength, and hope with them. So that's after treatment, and also to be honest, it's selfish for me too, because if there's something new out there, I want to know.
Yes.
Yes. I
Yes.
really, and certainly it's difficult. There's sometimes I'll look at grants and I'm like, oh, I wish that was around when I was going through this. Like my PET scan. There's a new thing out there for prostate cancer. I think it's maybe for breast cancer too. PSMA. It was not available when I went through what I went through, and if it was, it might have changed my course of treatment.
Wow.
So yeah. So, but it's something that's out there. It's an amazing new tool.
It's called PSMA.
It's called PSMA. It's what it does is it actually lights up the prostate cancer cells. So if that had been available, it may have changed my decision to go from surgery to radiation and also chemo. There's also another thing too, that when men have a biopsy done, they use ultrasound to go in, and they basically shoot needles through the rectum to try to capture the tumor. They need to have, and the new standard care is using an MRI, just like a mastectomy, not a mastectomy, but for breast cancer, when you go in and have a mammogram, you use an MRI. It's MRI guided. They didn't have that. And if that was available, they might have seen that area in my prostate that moved me to a stage 4. And I would have gone with radiation and ADT, hormone therapy, as opposed to surgery, and outcome would have been different. But these are techniques that are now becoming available to men, that will be available to men through advocating and through research. It's amazing what's out there. Oh, it gives me hope too. That's another thing. It gives me hope of what's out there. Research is incredible. Technological. After COVID, all the stuff coming off the shelves is remarkable. It really is. So.
You should watch our Tea Talk that I did on Monday with a doctor, with an oncologist, and he said this very thing. He said they cannot keep up with the amount of new things, which are amazing things coming from all over the world. He said in the last 3 to 5 years, there's been so many discoveries. It's making his head spin. He can't keep up. And so he said, people who are now, he said we should eliminate from the language, okay, this is the 3 to 5 years. So he says, because he says now there's so much good, amazing breakthroughs coming. And I spoke to a woman, she's a stage 4 metastatic survivor as well. And she said a similar thing. She said when she was diagnosed 7 years ago, she was treated with something that just came out 3 months before she got diagnosed. And she says she believes that she will outlive it all because there'll be something that's going to cure it in her lifetime. So
I feel the same way about prostate cancer. Exactly. Yes. I believe there'll be a cure for it in my lifetime. Really
yes. And this is encouraging to us because we are starting our first patient advocacy GU conference coming this November, where we're going to be, talking more about prostate cancer, and we're trying to get some patients and some advocacy, and we're going to have the GU doctors there. So I'll give you some more information about that. We're having one in Denver and we're having one in South Florida, one of those meetings. Great. And so what you're saying to me, because I'm running one in South Florida, is very encouraging, and it's giving me just a lot of great ideas. A couple more things. Peter said, sexual issues are such an important part of survivorship for men and women, but there are ways to reconnect with your sexuality after cancer. Great talk on this from Dr. Guntupalli. That's his post, Women, Sex, and Cancer. We need to talk about it. So when you're done, Ted, maybe you can click on that link. It's on our Total Health website, and you can check that out, because we know it's a part of life and we have to talk about it.
Yep.
And Peter's a scientist. Great that you have found a purpose to get you through this. My fellow Star Trek fan, like Captain Kirk's first order of business, survival. Ted, do you have anything that we haven't covered that you feel like we must get out on this talk?
The only other thing I mentioned briefly was genetic testing.
Yes.
Because I was stage 4, OHSU approached me to have a genetic test done for free. And it turns out that my journey could be, you're the exception, not the rule. That could be the caption for my journey. And I have a variant called HOCB13 variant, which makes my family members, both male and female, more prone to prostate cancer. And I was able to get that information to them and give them the legacy. They could get tested earlier for it. And I would recommend, if any survivors out there, do consider genetic testing, please.
Yeah. Great point. And finally, we call this show T Talks because we're basing it on the T cells, which are our fighter cells. So we like to leave the show with something that's, uplifting. That man, you're going to talk to that man who is newly diagnosed, or that wife who has a husband who's diagnosed, and we want you to leave them with something that's going to lift them up today.
There is hope. There's tremendous research that's out there, tremendous technological advances out there. Avail yourself of prostate cancer support groups. They're pretty much in every major center, and there are even national online groups that are available. Reach out, ask for help. It's shocking how many men and women, it's a tornado that goes through people's families. And I can't recommend enough that to share with men, and share with women, and share your experience, strength, and hope. And it's not a death sentence, nowhere near like it used to be. My dad had it. He had surgery. He was never the same. There's advances through laparoscopic surgery, through the Da Vinci surgery, through chemo, through the drug therapies. There's hope. There's absolute hope. Absolute hope.
Your dad had the same disease?
He did. Yes.
And how old was he when he was diagnosed?
He was 65, and that was another message too, is please get tested. If you get tested early, the chances of survival go through the roof. Don't hashtag don't be like Ted. Don't wait till it's too late. And I did wait till it was too late. And that's something I should have brought out too. I waited till it was too late.
How do you get tested? In other words, I know, with women, we go and we do the mammograms, what do you all do?
There's two ways. There's a blood test called a PSA, where they can actually, when you have prostate cancer, it throws out a thing called a prostate-specific antigen, PSA. So you hit a level of 4.0 or above typically, and also you have a digital rectal exam, which guys don't like. But the less invasive way is through the blood test. It's a simple blood test. If you have a history of cancer in your family, please get tested. And there's so many new ways to get tested coming down the road that are just less invasive. It's amazing. There's another urine testing is another way. Just through your urine, they're now coming up with techniques to figure out if you've got a cancer or not. But please get tested. Get tested early. Would
you recommend, or that you start at 50? What do you recommend?
Well,
like with women, we're getting tested younger and younger now, because so many young people are having breast cancer. It used to be 50, and then it was 45, and now it's if you have it in your family, you can get it earlier. What would you recommend for? Well, certainly if it's in your family, what would you recommend? And if it's not in your family, what would you recommend?
Well, with my case, because of my family had HOCB13, they're recommending 40 and above. I was talking to an African American man. He was 36 years old, and he had prostate cancer. Sadly, 1 in 6 African American men are much more prone. 1 in 6 African American men get it versus 1 in 8 of the general population. I think the guidelines now is 45. But boy, if you have a history in your family, absolutely get tested early and often. I mean, it's if you get to catch this thing earlier, your outcomes are so much better. Almost 100% survival rate.
Yes, that's what I've heard. Ted, thank you so very much for sharing your insights, your thoughts, your resources. I mean, your advocacy, everything. It was so amazing and uplifting. Peter wanted to just give a final. Important to know that neither screening method is perfect. PSA levels can be impacted by sexual activity and even things like bike riding, but it's the best we have right now. So no reason not to do a simple blood test. And that is so true. Ted, thank you so much for sharing so openly and honestly. And I'm going to pray and for your upcoming scans. I know that, Peter's wife is also a breast cancer survivor. So we know what we call it, the PTSD for the scan. So we understand, and you're right. It's every 6 months we got to go through it. But I will say this one thing that the doctor said on Monday. He said we shouldn't live like that. It's easier for him to say, he's an oncologist, but he said, just try to live in these day buckets, in these day buckets. And like you said, Ted, the walking of the dog, the forest, the music, the yoga. He said, just try to live there because, you know, it's just healthier. And but we know as survivors that it's easier said than done. So I will certainly lift up a prayer for you for that peace of mind, because I know exactly what you're talking about. And your friend Jamie, who recommended you to me, said, you know, thank you both for spreading awareness.
Jamie, yay, we'll miss you, Jamie at Zero. Thank you so much.
Jamie, you're missed. All right. Well, thank you so much for everyone for watching. And if you're in the replay, you know, we will catch you in the replay. Take care.
Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.